Our front header attachment menu. We can assign what header is on, but with header recognition, typically when you hook up the header, it should automatically pick which header. We can assign the working width, and that helps us for our acre counter. The partial increments is if we got a 24-foot 10-row head, it's 10 rows, we can put that in. Now if we're doing a pickup and we're merging or raking 3 swaths into there, we can do 3, and that will help us to assign for the acre counter if you're really wanting to have acres adjusted correctly. Auto contour, we can adjust how fast it's moving. We can adjust how fast the side-to-side oscillation is moving. We can adjust how fast the drop rate and lift rate, as well as cross leveling. So with a corn head on, and if you're going through the field and it feels like the chopper is really jerky, you can turn down the side-to-side motion for that, and that will smooth out the chopper, because it just means that it's trying to go too fast of measuring the side-to-side, and it's really jerking the chopper, especially if you got smaller tires on and the tires are in the narrow base format. Next one is our front attachment height. If we hit our preset height number here, you see how it becomes bold. We can either tap on here and adjust the height to what we want, and it'll learn that, or we can go into another menu that we'll get to in a minute. Working position, this is when your inoculant, your acre counter, everything turns off. So you want to set that for just a little bit below whatever you're raising the header for headland height, so that way it stops counting acres. It shuts off your inoculant when you're turning on the headland. And then follow the owner's manual's instructions to learn your upper and lower limits. It's extremely important when you put a new head on that you learn the upper and lower, so the header can perform up and down properly. You can also see here with the mode, we've now got selected the preset height, and it turned green. In preset height, you can see with the arrows up and down. If we set with auto contour, we can measure the auto contour with pressure. If you want to change something, you can come in here and change the height. You can still, in the same menu, change all of the things there as well. So if we go back to preset height, we can also use on the armrest, the buttons over to the side, we can change the header height as well from the buttons. Now we're going to adjust our header height. So we turn our engine on, we turn our cutter head on. Please make sure things are safe around you before you do that, and again, reference your owner's manual and all the safety procedures. So now if we want to adjust in our header things, we have to select, let's say, preset height. So we hit the preset height button, and you see now the little icon turns green, and we can set then the height. We can either come into the monitor and hit the button here, and we can change that this way, or we can use a little toggle switch that looks like header up and down off to the right of the armrest, and you can see how it moved. And if we hit the preset height button again, you see how it went to the white one, and that's how we would run a corn head if we had no auto contour ones. As well as any other head, when we turn on the headland, we can set that height, so for headland height. Now we can do the flotation. So we have an older header attached here, so that's why we're in a negative number. A negative number is using the float of the feed roll cabinet. If you're in a positive number, you're using electronic sensors on the hay head. And you can again use the buttons on the side of the armrest to adjust it up or down. And with a hay head, You always want to get out, and once you got it set right, go look at the brass tube on the right hand side of the hay head, and with the chopper sitting still safely in park, that tube should be in the upper one. Now let's go into the steering mode. So to turn on autopilot, we just hit the green button. We can look at what sensor, so if you have cam pilot for steering on a windrow, the touch arms, or if you're using GPS steering, you would go with no sensor. You can adjust the left right if it's trying to go too much to one direction. You can straighten it as well as play with the aggressiveness. Down here on the learn the touch arms, you can learn the 0 point of the touch arms when you start out for the year. Now let's get into the machine. There's quite a few things that we can learn in the machine. So when we go to the feeder unit, we do have this option called automatic length of cut control. If you get that option, you can turn it on or off here. You have to have a NIR moisture sensor to do that. When you do that, you can have it adjust your length of cut based on your moisture or dry matter. I know parts of the country talk in dry matter, some parts talk in moisture. So in this example, you can see here we're at dry matter. So when the crop is wetter, we wanted to chop 21 millimeter. When it's in a middle range of 35 dry matter or 65% moisture, we wanted to chop 19. And if we get really dry, then it'll go down to 15.5. So we can really keep a good consistent shaker box sample going into the bunk this way. And it's all up to you what you want to do. We also have adjustable hydraulic pre-compression. This is now standard equipment on the new 502 Series 900. You can most of the time run it in automatic mode. In automatic mode, it'll adjust it depending on the crop and the length of cut you're in. But in certain situations, you can run it in manual. So for example, if you're chopping corn in October and it got frosted and it's really brown or the spider mites got to it, you can switch to manual, because if you were chopping at 21 millimeter, it's going to be set on weak. And maybe you're getting a little bit of raggy cut, you've sharpened your knives, the shear bar is good. What we have seen with this, a nice feature is then come in here and select medium. And that will really help, because then the feed rolls are pushing down on the crop more, holding it better, and you'll improve your chop quality, so you'll have a lot more consistent. Then the last one is our direct stop. Direct stop we can have on for hay head, so when we get metal or a rock, it'll stop us. We can adjust the metal detector sensitivity, as well as we can adjust the stone detector sensitivity. Stone detector sensitivity will vary greatly depending on the crop, the conditions, as well as your length of cut. So we don't really have a good number to recommend depending on which situation. You need to adjust the sensitivity so you get 1 or 2 false trips a day. That is a really good way to know that you've got it set to get those smaller rocks. Cutting cylinder. Only thing under the cutting cylinder is to tell the machine how many knives you have in here. If you go to half knives, you need to tell the machine that. Discharge accelerator, you can change the gap on the go. The learning procedure I won't get in today. Follow the owner's manual to do that. The ensilage agent, you can assign if you get the optional Acti-Siler tank as well as a big tank. You can have them both going at the same time, or you can have one or the other. The main big thing is if you have a moisture meter and a tonnage meter, you can then do it by throughput dependent. So if you want ounces per ton, you can do it that way. Constant is ounces per hour or gallons per hour. And material dependent, the bottom one, is if you want to adjust the amount of inoculant going on for moisture. So we have throughput dependent, that's the most popular. So what's nice with this is you can mix up your inoculant always to the same rate, and then as you chop through the field, if you're chopping 100 ton an hour, it's going to put on so many ounces per ton. If you're now up at 420 ton an hour in corn with the 990 pushing hard, it'll put the right amount on throughout the time. It's a very intelligent system. You can also come in here to see the fill level of the tanks, as well as with the ActiSiler, it'll even tell you the temperature of the tank. The OptiFill and Autofill menu. You can turn on OptiFill on and off, and by turning it on with OptiFill option, it's when you rotate the spout, it automatically adjusts your end cap, as well as on your joystick, the button that looks like a spout down button on the joystick on the C-Motion handle. When you hit that with the knife drum off, it'll park the spout for you. As well as if you hold that button 3 seconds, it will automatically move your spout to the straight back position for if you're going to do a cut through or split through the field. Now when we get into the autofill menu, if you want autofill to work correctly or with a full function, you want to make sure you hit discharge flap and discharge direction. Autofill is also an option. Filling strategy, we always recommend if you have semis, use front to back, so it'll start filling the front, and as it's full in the front, it'll keep working its way back. If you're going to fill straight trucks, use rear, which means it'll start filling to the rear and making its way forward. So with autofill, you do need to adjust some different settings. So this first one is how close or far away the end cap is throwing the crop in the trailer. So if you are getting the silage too close to you and it's coming off the sidewall near you, you just need to come into this menu and go up 1 or 2 numbers. As you can see here, how the number indicates on the screen. Fill level. Fill level is done by measuring the bottom of the trailer to the top. So depending on how high your sidewalls are on the trailer, this number will be different, but we do recommend to run the fill level so it's filling about 90% of the trailer, and then you manually top off the trailer, because especially if you have different trailers, this is kind of handy. The next menu over is how close you're filling it to the front. The next menu over is how close you are filling it to the rear, so you're not spilling off the back, as well as your filling sensitivity. It's how fast the spout will move. Typically stick really close to 0 as possible. Now if you're changing spouts or extensions through the season, you do need to come in and tell it which spout extension that you have in. Swivel rates, that'll be the end cap. The rest of the spout rotations, please keep them at zero. Now if you change a sensor or do some adjusting, or you don't think autofill is working correctly, follow the owner's manual's instructions and do the start learning procedure to learn all the end stops of your sensors. Sharpening menu. So we got some different things. It's very similar to what we used to have with the old monitor. So you can do sharpening the knives. If you hit this button with the knife drum on, you can sharpen the knives. You can come in, adjust the shear bar. So you can see the shear bar clearance is set for 8 of 10, and there's 65% of the knives left. You can park the shear bar. Again, please look at the owner's manual for proper instructions. Then under the settings, we can look to see, again, the condition of our knives, the next time we should sharpen. So right now we have it set for 5 passes. When we sharpen, we've got the shear bar clearance set for 8 and the sharpening interval for 10. You can also, if you have the tonnage meter, set it up to remind you to sharpen after so many tons. So the next menu is settings. This is a really important menu. So you can change your operating modes, which modes show up on top. User type, professional, gives you access to all things. If you've got an inexperienced operator in here and don't want them to make a lot of adjustments in the monitor, you can set the beginner mode. Display settings, you can set the brightness of the screen. User defined. So these are these little boxes on the main screen. And you can come in here and select your display 1. You can select the display 2, like we showed in doing the box. You can pick what do you want to read out in these different displays. The favorite management system. This is a new option or new standard feature on the new Jaguar 900 series with the CMOS handle. So the button that used to be always on the old handle, the roller crop press button or side-to-side leveling for corn head, is now a favorites menu button. With favorites menu button, you can have up to 7 positions. And we'll get into this a little bit later with the joystick. There's an up and down arrow, and you can select which one that you want. So if you put the box on position 1, it will go to, you can see down here, it's right now we had the header side to side. But if you don't want header side to side, and let's say you want air horn, position 1, you can have air horn. By doing that, you can see here in the menus, we can select air horn, we can select spout up and down, this. And so you can change it to whatever you want. So this here, because we have autofill, we can have the autofill filling height. We can use that trigger from our roller crop press trigger in the past to change that. And you see once you stop pushing the button, it's down here in the bottom. And it'll even tell you at what number you're at. So you can put in different positions, different things for that feature. Lighting. If you want the back lights to come on at night when you back up, you can do that. As well as with the autofill, you can have the beacons, the flashing beacons, come on when it senses the trailer is 75% full to alert the next empty truck that you're about full with that truck, and he can get coming on to your area. Sound level, you can assign how loud the monitor beeps at you for codes and reminders. This is a very important menu, assignment of display areas. We do this so you can assign the boxes I talked about. So right now we have the header height boxes selected for number 1. We have display 1 set. So if we wanted to put rear camera there, so now when I go back, you can see here we have the rear camera. So we can set whatever you want to put to that menu. Some other things is where here we can assign our camera outputs. And then the bottom one is basic settings, where we assign English measurement, English language, miles or kilometers, the type of tons, acres, hectares, gallons, liters, and all of that type of thing. Then the last menu is information. If a code comes up, you can hit that to get more information. So a really nice feature that the CLAAS Jaguar 900 series has is a start chopping menu and a regular chopping menu. In other terms, you can set the chopper up to have certain settings when you're doing a split, like in corn, or a cut through, depending on the language that you use in your region. So like if you're chopping with a truck behind you, you can have one settings, and then when you have a truck or tractor alongside of you, you can have different settings. The way to adjust this and set it up for the first time is you have to have the engine safely on with the knife drum safely on. You come into the machine, and you come down here to own machine settings. Again, they will not be here unless you have the knife drum on. So the start chopping mode is when you're wanting to have it so when you're making a split through the field. So maybe you want the engine RPMs to be a little bit higher when you're making the split. You can have dynamic power on or off. You can have cruise pilot on or off. What is really nice is you can have direct stop off. So that way the chopper doesn't suddenly stop if you got metal out there and then the truck or tractor bumps in the rear end. But when we're chopping along the side, you can have that on. Another great thing is if you have the hydraulic accelerator gap adjustment, you can have the accelerator gap adjustment come in really tight so the machine will throw the crop far behind you. Or you can have it when you're alongside wide open to gain more efficiency and less wear on your spout. You can also, if you have the OptiFill option, have it turn off when you're doing the split through the field, or if you do have the autofill menu. What is really nice then is when you're doing the split and you hit the one button, it will turn autofill to rear filling versus side filling. So with one button, we'll show you here in a second, you can do all that. So if you've got your settings set for making your split and then chopping alongside. So what's nice is you come up here to this little menu right there, and then you can hit start chopping if you want to make a split. It's now, as you can see, the accelerator gap is moving. Autofill is going to the rear position, and it changed the RPM settings that we had. Now you can get out of there, do your split. Now when you're turning around, come up here, hit chop mode, and now the chopper will be set up so when you're chopping alongside, it'll have all the settings that you've pre-adjusted for that.